Okay, thank you for joining. This is a Parsha class. This week's Parsha Tazria Metzorah. I don't think it's one people are going to miss greatly in Shul on Shabbat. One of the more technical, complicated, very difficult words. I remember, I don't know if it's apocryphal, people saying that in Monks, in the Gold's Green Beth Medrash, in Gold's Green, it's a shul full of yakas, and they're very, particular, that the laning be absolutely perfect. And people say that they would promise a golden watch for someone who can lane Tazria Metzorah without any mistakes. There's a lot of who and he, and in a Torah school it's hard to differentiate between the two. They're written the same, but you have to really know the grammar, you really have to know the laning. And even the topics. Really, there's two major topics, and I want to touch on both of them. The first topic, a major theme, is actually only takes up a very few verses. The first aliyah, maybe the first 7-8 verses in the portion. That is about the impurity comes about after childbirth, the karbanot, the sacrifices a woman who has given birth has to bring, and then we also mention in that context the Brit Milah, the mitzvah to circumcise a son on the 8th day. And then we'll move on to the major topic of our Sedra. I would want to try to finish by 8:30 because I know there's various programs tonight for Yom HaShoah. There's a big Mizrahi UK are putting on. I know people have got things on. We'll try to keep it shorter. And the other major theme is on Tzorat, on this disease that comes about. Again, the Torah is not clear for what purposes. We'll try to discuss what is it. There's a physical malady, a spiritual malady. We often refer to it as leprosy, but that again isn't really clear that that's what it was. And then most of the parsha deals with the different various forms of this Tzorat disease, how it comes, how you identify it, how it's the process that's gone through with a person who contracts it, so to speak, the impurity, the abandonment from the camp, the Yoshei Badad, them sitting outside, their reintegration into the camp, the sacrifices they have to bring in various forms. It can come on different, on whether it be on clothes, on the human body, even on physical buildings. So we'll get to that hopefully later in the second part of the Shiur, discussing, and this will be a parsha analyzing through the sources, primary sources, through the psukim in the Torah, the verses, and our primary commentators trying to explore these two topics. As I said, we begin on the source sheet, source 1, part 1. The verse tells us, "Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe Leiman." This is the beginning of this week's portion. "Daber b'nei Yisrael Leiman," speak to the children of Israel, saying, "Isha kis chazria v'yodo zachar," a woman who gives birth and she has a male. V'tama'ah shiv'as yamim, she's impure for 7 days. Kimei nidastu v'osat, it's more like the days of her menstruation impurity, the period of nida, biblically 7 days. Then on the 8th day, Yimol B'Sar also, that's when you give the Brit Milah, the circumcision to the boy. And when the days of her purity are completed, meaning she has the process to become ritually impure, whether it be for son or a daughter, and there's different amounts of periods for the son or the daughter. Therefore, she should bring a keves, a lamb of 1 year, la'olah, as a burnt offering. And a dove or a bird offering as a sin offering. To the entrance of the tent of the meeting and to the kohen. What the commentators grapple here with is, why on earth is this woman who's gone through the process of giving birth, of bringing human life into this world, the greatest joy, the most exalted thing, really, as many explain, the highest level of creation that human beings can engage in. We become godlike when we bring, literally, we're partners with God when we bring new human life into this world. So why is she bringing a ben yonah otor lechatot? Why on earth is there a sin offering going on here? What is the sin she's has to be punished for, that she's culpable for, that she needs to bring this offering? And by the different answers that the commentators offer here, we'll see it really sheds a lot of light on this topic as a whole. So let's see the Ramban. So the Ramban writes, she brings it before God. There's an atonement going on here. So so what's going on? She brings, so to speak, a ransom for herself. Before God. Why? Ki isha belidata tiyela me'ein nirpas. Meaning, at the time of birth, it's a very dangerous moment in life. Until the modern age, and even in the modern age, unfortunately, but fortunately much less common. Childbirth was, many women died in childbirth. It was a great time of grave danger. And therefore, Tovi Kofa Nafsha, a few lines down, meaning it's in this sin offering, so to speak, is like an atonement, but more than an atonement, it's more like a ransom. It's more like a recognition that God has given her life back. God has got her safely through this most dangerous of moments of childbirth. That's one explanation that the Ramban offers. It's more less of a sin offering, but more like a kofet, more like a ransom for herself. Rabbi Seinu Amru, but the rabbis are now based on the Gemara in Nida. Meaning the intense pain of childbirth causes many women at that moment to swear and to promise and to tell the world that they're never gonna have another child again. Meaning, obviously, she was swearing, she was taking this oath under duress, and it doesn't stand up. The oath falls away. Nonetheless, she needs an atonement for taking such an oath. We believe the word, the covenant of the mouth, of the tongue, the spoken word. What a man's word is their bond. What you say, what you promise, especially as an oath you take, has pertinency, has power. Indeed, we begin Yom Kippur, the holiest of days, with Kol Nidrei, that obscure, interesting sort of declaration to get rid of our oaths, to get rid of those vows we've made unintentionally or even intentionally, but we weren't able to carry through. So this woman in childbirth is making oaths that she obviously doesn't mean, that she never wants, but nonetheless, she needs a kofa, she needs a kapara, she needs an atonement for that. Okay, that's the Rambam. The Balaturim in 4 words says something very interesting. So we said that the time of impurity for after childbirth is 7 days. And the Balaturim, so Rav Yaakov ben Asher, from Spain in the 15th century, wrote the Torah, a major work of halacha, upon which is the Shulchan Aruch is sort of modeled. What does he write? So he links the 7 days of mourning we have, which we observe after the passing of a close relative, to these 7 days that a woman after childbirth is deemed to be impure. Even though technically speaking, there's certain blood that a woman sees after childbirth doesn't render her impure. Nonetheless, we have these 7 days of impurity, and he's corresponding them to the days of mourning. So perhaps what's going on here is the woman is mourning something. When a woman gives birth, she's mourning the life that was in her that was now lost. Obviously, she now has a living human being. She has a living child. That was the purpose of the pregnancy. But nonetheless, she was carrying, she was ingesting, she was carrying in herself, building a life within her body for all those months. And now that life within her is no longer there. And therefore, there's a certain sense of mourning. Indeed, when one of the customs of a Shalom Zachar, and one of the Sefer Tamiyam and Hagim, a book about customs, Jewish customs, explains that in a way a Shalom Zachar is sort of a miniature, like a shiva, both for the child, and maybe here what we see is for the mother. One of the customs of a Shalom Zachar is to have arbas, like, what are they called in English? There's just, the words slipped my mind. It is, I'm not going to remember the words. It's anyone know? Any help out there for one of the customs to have at a Shalom Zachar? We have. I'm just slipping on the words. Okay.
Arya, you had boys, Yeah,
I was trying to think what they are. You're talking about those little round things that taste revolting.
What are they called in English?
I can't remember, but they taste revolting. Don't have them.
Right. So what's interesting is that food is a round food, which is again reminiscent of the custom to have round foods, lentils or eggs, at a shiva. Again, we serve food at a Shalom Zachar that has a symbolism of an avelut. So on one hand, it's for the child, that is the soul that was pure and pristine in heaven, and now has entered into the solid world, into this challenging world. All that Gemara Nida,
that the child in the mother's womb learns Torah with the Malach. Again, they're in some heightened spiritual level, and now they've been plonked down into this world. But we even see perhaps on the sense of the mother. We see it today. We're more aware of things like postpartum depression and things like that. That really, there is a loss. There is a physical loss. There is a real loss that the mother experiences, and that is what he says. Those 7 days. It doesn't explain why it links to necessarily needing to bring a chatas. Again, the loss of life often is where we bring there's tumah and there's impurity as well. Rabbeinu Bachai and Kliyaka take a very different approach, and they take a very interesting approach. So let's look at Rabbeinu Bachai here. Rabbeinu Bachai being one of the Rishonim, medieval commentators on the Chumash from the Spanish school. She hasn't done any sin. Of course, she doesn't have to bring a sin offering on her behalf. Rather, we're talking about it's a sin offering on behalf of her mother, but not her own mother, but rather the mother of all of humanity, at least in the way the Torah presents it, i.e., for Chava, for Eve, for the first woman. Had it not been for the original sin, the sin in the Garden of Eden, eating from the tree of knowledge, says the Rabbeinu Bachai explains, and that's the Torah tells us explicitly, the punishment. Each party got a punishment. The snake got a punishment. It has to go on its stomach. It has to stand along. Man gets punishment. He has to work the field. He has to, by the sweat of his brow, he'll bring forth the produce. And the woman gets a punishment that childbirth isn't such a simple matter. So the Rabbeinu Bachai explains that had it not been for this sin, man and woman would have procreated without there needing to be what we might call the sexual tension. It would have been a natural cycle, just like trees. Another, a lower level of the reproductive world brings forth its produce, its fruit, each and every year, and there isn't this tension, there isn't this this dance between the two parties. It just happens year in, year out. It produces its fruit. So too, human beings, when they reproduce, had children in a more cyclical way, on a more natural, quote unquote, more natural, less complex and less complicated way. And therefore, he's saying that in a way, the childbirth, the pain of childbirth, the whole drama of the sexual tension and the mating and the problems of fertility and the pain that goes through in childbirth, pregnancy and childbirth, it's all as repercussions of the original sin of Adam and Eve, specifically Eve's part in the sin, and therefore she brings a kofar, she brings a kapar. Once she's gone through this, she brings an atonement, not for her, but rather, again, collectively, each and every Jewish woman, when she gives birth, brings a sin to atone for the original sin of Eve that's caused everything that she's gone through. And interestingly, he said, this sin, Eve's sin, was first and foremost, it was in the realm of thought, in the realm of intent, and only then in the realm of action. Interesting. If you look back at the verse, first that the Torah tells us to bring the burnt offering, and then to bring the sin offering. And as the Rabbeinu Bachai goes on to explain, each and every time we always find the sin offering comes, the chatos comes before the olah, before the burnt offering. And then he explains in reality, in action, when the woman would bring to the Beit HaMikdash these karbanot, they would actually offer up the sin offering before the burnt offering. But since burnt offerings are there to atone for sins that occurred in thought, in intent, and chatat, the sin offering, is therefore to atone for actions, sin in action. Here, it's indicative of what the sin is. That this sin that this woman is atoning for is nothing. Actually, she's not done anything, but rather it's about a sin in intent, i.e., the intent of Eve, the mother of all humankind, and therefore that's why the olah in this instant is presented in the Torah before the chatos. This is the Ibn Ezra. Shata makeves lo'ila shema also shumachshava arucha b'shas leidosa mirotza chata shema dibra b'fia. Again, a little bit we mentioned before from the Ramban that perhaps during the course of childbirth a woman thought a wrong thing or said something wrong, which was out of pain, sort of a knee-jerk reaction, but she needs to bring a sin offering forth. We're gonna skip the Kliyaka. He sort of touches a little bit on Rabbeinu Bachai's approach about this going back to the sin of Eve, and for a woman needing to return for that. That's the Sefarno here. Sefarno v'chiper oleh. Why does she need an atonement? It's very interesting to me. The Sefarno explains like this: that all the while this woman was pregnant, and we see this with people, especially before a first child, their whole life now becomes focused on that pregnancy. Maybe quite rightly. They become single-minded. Everything is about preparing for this child, doing what's right for this child, staying healthy, eating the right things, preparing my home, my family, whatever it might be. And he says for those 9 months, all the while till the child is born, she's slacked off in her spiritual life. She's removed the focus from her spiritual development, importantly and quite rightly, over to much more physical, material, temporal focus and concentration on bringing this child into the world. Now that she's coming back from this process, from the moment she becomes pregnant, all the way she's giving birth until she now concludes the days where she's ritually impure, and she can now come back to the temple, and in a way that's a symbolism, where that's telling us she's now ready to re-engage with communal religious life. She comes back into the precincts of the temple. Before she does that, she has to bring this carbon chatas to sort of say, I recognize that I had a misfocus here. I recognize that maybe for the last 9, 10, 11 months or whatever it may be, I haven't been focused enough on my spiritual life. I haven't been focused enough on my relationship with God. God, here's a chatas. I erred, I sinned, we've done wrong. Now let's repair and re-engage anew in a refocused on my spiritual life. Again, that happens often in life. We move away to something else, and we're focused on something else, and we realize that sometime we have to re-engage. And when we do re-engage, it has to be done in that right way. There's a recognition that it wasn't all hunky-dory until now. There's a recognition that perhaps the focus was wrong. And finally, in sort of that vein, the Moshe Chachma, Rameh Simcha of Devinsk, one of the great rabbis of Europe in the pre-war Europe, late 19th, early 20th century. So he writes, so he says, remember, she was impure from the childbirth. She wasn't allowed to come to the Bet HaMikdash all the time that she was becoming ritually pure again. So he explains the Ola is actually sort of echoes that which we bring on a Yom Tov, on a Chag. We bring an Ola on a Chag, meaning when we're coming now to the temple, we who live in the periphery of the land of Israel, and now we come 3 times a year, we come to show our face in the temple. Don't come empty-handed. That's what the Torah tells us. Bring a gift to God with you. Bring a thanksgiving. That's what the woman is doing. I couldn't. She was barred all this while from coming to the temple. Now she's allowed back. And remember, it's not after 7 days or 14. We're talking about after either 33 or 66 days. So there's quite a protracted, extended period. She's actually not allowed to come into the temple. Now she's re-engaged, and now she can come back. She can't come back empty-handed. She brings an Ola. Okay, he brings from Ibn Gabirol, who is a Spanish poet, not known in halachic or biblical commentary, known for his poetry. So Ibn Gabirol, he obviously has a poem from him that he brings that as a proof text for this. Again, similar idea, this re-engagement with communal religious life, either from the Sefarno, you needed a chatos, you need a sin offering, because there's been a recognition of that estrangement was wrong. Perhaps in a different vein, in Moshe Chachman, that you need the Ola the burnt offering, sort of the gift to God. Now I've been away. Now I'm coming. I won't come empty-handed. I'm bringing a korban. In a few minutes we have left, let's address the second topic of this week's parsha, and soras. It's a difficult topic to really get our heads around. Something we don't know, something we've never experienced. And broadly speaking, what exactly was it? So the Ramban really is a key here to understand, as he is in so many topics. Here we're talking about a piece of clothing. The garment can get this soraf, this malady on it. So he tells us straight off, don't think that soras was some type of, biological, medical, physical illness, malady, rash, skin disease, as if you could find in the annals of of a medical textbook. And then he says this with saras, the idea of there ever being saras on clothing, that we never find. Similarly on the homes. He's basically saying to you, on the skin, well, we can say we have similar, it must be a manifestation on the skin of some type of physical malady that we've seen other times. But he's saying the fact that the same malady can come on clothes and can come on houses, and he's saying it never happened. But the fact that there's such an idea, that's an indication that whatever we're talking about isn't just, or isn't merely, it's not simply a physical malady. If anything, it's not a sort of not just a malady, but it's the fact that it only comes when we're on a certain spiritual level. It's only when the Jewish people, the Israel, are shleimim Hashem, we've achieved a certain wholesomeness with God. Meaning, the fact that God would send this discolourment, this disease, this sign on your house, on your clothing, on even your physical body, it shows that God, if you're living at a heightened level of God awareness and God's presence in your life. But otherwise, God doesn't interact with the world that way. There's not such a clear, reaction and action and reaction. So that's already, he explained, therefore it can only happen, only would ever happen in the land of Israel when the Jewish people are settled in their homeland in the proper spiritual state. So that is okay, I forgot something. Okay, that is the Ramban explaining soras has to be only that way. The Safari takes it a step further and said that's why it only occurs with Jews and not with non-Jews. Look at what he writes here. So a person made a mistake. He's sinned, and he becomes afflicted with his money or on his body, according to God's wisdom, in order that you should give in. Oh, I've done something wrong. I've erred. I need to repair my ways. Meaning, God's only going to send these messages for those who are looking for them, those who are going to be receptive of them, those who are going to believe in them. I just want to actually show you a few lines before. Where is this? Yeah, okay, I should read this part of this. Okay. Can you see the at the top of the page? Meaning, in all of creation, it's obviously humanity. It's the human species, which is the purpose of creation, tells us the Sefarna. Because only a human being who is prepared, who is possible to be imitatio Deo, to be similar to the Creator, whether intellectually or in action. When God creates and tells us about creation in Bereshit, he tells us, I'm going to create man in our image, in our likeness. It's interesting. It's very universalistic. Is it Sefarno? You'd expect this from Sefarno. This is all of humanity. All of humanity share this idea that we're in God's image, which means we have the ability to mimic and be godlike. So that Salem Elokim, we're in the we're fashioned like God, and Demus, we literally have the face of God, the image of. Because again, Only humans have the ability of free will. When a person thinks about the existence of his creator and the greatness of his creator, the tuva and the goodness of the creator, he's an abundance of goodness and kindness and truth. He enacts charity and justice. Once a person appreciates this, it's going to lead you, if you recognize the creator, will hopefully lead you to follow his word and to follow his ways. But and again, it's about humanity at large. But then he says that there's another level. That's all well and very good, that all humanity at large can achieve this level of being godlike. However, whether you're going to be sensitive to the messages God sends you, i.e., that when you err slightly, or you do one of the sins, we're not going to get to it. The Gemara talks about and the Rishonim talk about the different sins, the different lacking spiritual failures that bring about saras. Whether you're going to be susceptible, whether you're going to be give ear to the messages God's sending you. That says the Safano is something only exclusive. I guess is more exclusive to the Jewish people, uniquely. Klioko goes on to talk about the different things that the saras comes from here. They didn't explain it. Haughtiness, again, because a person expresses an ego or haughtiness through their clothing, and based on this Klioko, Rav Shomrei explains, suggested that it makes sense that the various sins that are here, if you look at the Gemara, Erchin, or 7 sins, these saras, these afflictions come. The Medrash tells us on 10 things. And again, if there's split up between house, clothing, and human body, it will make sense that the sins carried out, the sins which are particular to those various elements of a person's life, are going to be a cause for them. So sins that cause and failures that to do with one's lifestyle, the house, or one's clothing, or one's physical body. Therefore, the Negoim come on that. And the Klioko explains that what is Saras? We call him the Metzorah. It's a Motzira, meaning it's an exposure. He says Saras is all about it's an exposing from the inside out, and therefore, even though the Torah, in reality, they would first come on the house, and then they would first come on the house, then on the body, and then on the clothes, and then on the skin. The Torah presents it the opposite way. It talks first about Saras on the body, then Saras on the clothes, and then Saras on the skin, on the home, because it's about sort of peeling back. It's about exposing and the different layers of a person. I.e., every person. Let's see if we can find it inside in the Klioko. Yeah, I've got it on the screen here. It's basically God's correction system. It's a way to expose that which is rotten, that which is crooked, that which is corrupt within us. And basically, that's what he said. It's on these different concentric circles, on these different levels of our human existence, from the most outward, how we show ourselves to the world within the places we live, to the most private, on the physical body, on the human body, which is always covered. Nonetheless, and they're often, as the Gemara and the Medrash explain, they are on sins that are often obscured from other people. I mean, other people don't know about them, but are antisocial. That are destructive to societally destructive, and it's a way to expose. It's a way to help this person repair who they are and their negative behavior, and that's sort of a way to expose them and to bring them. There's a lot more to say, but our time is up. Let me stop the recording. Yeah.